It all started on a rainy Saturday, the kind of day where the sky is a grumpy dark gray. My friends and I were stuck inside my house. There was me, Liam, the one who always overthinks things. There was Maya, who acts tough but is secretly scared of everything. And then there was Chloe, the quiet one, who notices details no one else does. We were bored, so bored, we decided to explore the one place my parents told me to never go alone: the attic. The wooden ladder creaked under our weight as we climbed one by one into the dusty darkness. The air was thick and smelled like old books and forgotten memories. It was the kind of spooky place that gives you goosebumps. We found it tucked away in an old wooden chest, hidden under a pile of my grandpa's moth-eaten sweaters. It was a video game, but not just any video game. The box was plain black with no pictures, no logos. Just one word was scrawled on the front in silver marker: Phobia. There was no company name, no rating, nothing. It looked homemade, maybe a prototype that was never meant to be found. Maya, ever the daredevil, snatched it from my hands. "Let's play it!" she declared, her eyes wide with excitement. A strange feeling washed over me, a little shiver of warning, but what could I say? We were bored, and this was the most interesting thing to happen all day. We hurried back downstairs to my room, the mysterious game clutched in Maya's hand like a pirate's treasure. We dusted off my old console, a clunky machine I hadn't used in years. The cartridge clicked into place with a satisfying thud. The screen flickered to life, not with a flashy company logo, but with a single, pulsing red dot. The silence in the room was thick. We all leaned in closer, our faces lit by the eerie glow. The red dot morphed into text, the same word from the box: phobia. Then another line appeared beneath it: "How are you feeling today?" It was a weird question for a video game to ask. We didn't know how to answer. The game didn't wait. Suddenly, the screen changed. It showed 3 shadowy figures, each one a vague outline of a person. Below them, a new message flashed. Player 1, select your fear. A list appeared: spiders, heights, the dark, clowns. We all laughed nervously. It seemed silly, like a cheap horror game from a bargain bin. Maya, trying to prove how brave she was, grabbed the controller. "This is lame!" she scoffed, but her hand was shaking just a little bit. She scrolled down the list, her thumb hovering over the options. The game seemed to be waiting, watching us, learning about us. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. We were just kids looking for fun. We were about to find something else entirely. Maya went first. She chose the dark. She always bragged about not needing a nightlight, but we knew she left her closet light on every single night. The game seemed to know too. Her character, a simple pixelated girl, was dropped into a world of pure blackness. You couldn't see anything except for the small circle of light around her. The only sound was the drip, drip, drip of water somewhere in the distance, and a faint scratching sound, a sound that seemed to come from just beyond the light. Maya gripped the controller, her knuckles turning white. "I can't see anything," she whispered, her voice tight. The scratching got louder, closer. Next up was me, Liam. My biggest fear? Heights. I can't even stand on a chair without my stomach doing flip-flops. As soon as I took the controller, the screen changed. My character appeared on a narrow, crumbling ledge. It was high up on a skyscraper. So high, the cars below looked like tiny little ants. The wind howled through the console's speakers, a digital scream that made my ears ring. The goal was simple: walk to the other side of the ledge. But the game made it hard. The controller vibrated every time a gust of wind blew. I could feel my palms sweating. I took one step, then another. The ledge beneath my character cracked. I almost dropped the controller. Then it was Chloe's turn. Chloe was afraid of spiders, not just a little scared, terrified. She once saw a tiny spider in the bathroom and refused to go in there for a week. The game loaded her level. It was a damp, mossy cave. The walls were covered in thick, white webs. And then we saw them. Spiders, not just 1 or 2, hundreds. They skittered down from the ceiling on silky threads. They crawled out of cracks in the rock. Big ones, small ones, hairy ones. Chloe let out a small gasp. Her character had to find a key hidden somewhere in the cave. But to get it, she had to walk right through the swarms of 8-legged monsters. The game was smart. Too smart. It wasn't just showing us pictures of our fears. It was creating experiences. For Maya, the darkness wasn't just empty. It was filled with unseen things. For me, the height wasn't just a picture. The vibrating controller and the sound of the wind made it feel real. For Chloe, the spiders didn't just sit there. They moved in twitchy, unnatural ways that made your skin crawl. We played for what felt like hours, each of us taking turns facing our own personal nightmare. Each time we died, the game would just start the level over. We were trapped in a loop of terror, but we couldn't look away. It was the most terrifying game we had ever played, and we loved it. The first strange thing happened after we stopped playing for the night. My mom called us down for dinner. As Maya got up from the floor, she flicked on my bedroom light switch. Nothing happened. She tried it again. Still nothing. The room was plunged into darkness, just like her level in the game. Weird, my mom said from downstairs. The power must have gone out on this street. But when I looked out the window, all the other houses had their lights on. It was just our house. Just my room. Maya stood frozen in the middle of the room, her eyes wide in the gloom. I could hear that same faint scratching sound from the game. Or maybe it was just a tree branch scraping against the window. The next day at school, things got even weirder. During lunch, I was walking up the stairs to the second floor. Suddenly, my legs felt like jelly. My head started to spin. I looked down, and for a second the stairs seemed to stretch into a deep, dark canyon. It was like I was back in the game, standing on that high ledge. I grabbed the railing, my heart pounding in my chest. I had to close my eyes and take a deep breath just to make it to the top of the stairs. I had never been that scared of stairs before. It was just a silly feeling, I told myself. It was my imagination playing tricks on me because of that creepy game. But the feeling of falling stayed with me all day. Chloe had the worst experience of all. She was in science class dissecting a frog. She reached into her backpack to grab a pencil. When she pulled her hand out, a huge black spider was crawling on her arm. She screamed, a real blood-curdling scream that made everyone in the class jump. The spider fell to the floor and scurried away under a desk. The teacher tried to calm her down, but Chloe was shaking. She swore the spider had looked just like the ones in the game. Too big, too black, too real. Everyone else said it was just a normal little spider that had probably crawled into her bag outside, but Chloe knew what she saw. It was a digital monster that had crawled out of the screen. That evening, we met up at my house again. We had to talk about what was happening. We all sat in my room, the game console turned off. We tried to convince ourselves it was all a coincidence. A power outage, a dizzy spell, a random spider. It all made sense if you thought about it. But deep down, none of us believed it. The game was leaking. Its fears were spilling out into our world like ink bleeding through a page. We were all scared, but a part of us was also curious. We had to know more. So, against our better judgment, we turned the game back on. We had to see what would happen next. We thought we could just stop. We thought we could put the game back in the attic and forget we ever found it. We were wrong. The next day, I tried. I took the black cartridge out of the console. I held it in my hand, ready to march it back up to the dusty chest where it belonged. But I couldn't. My fingers wouldn't let go. It was like my hand had a mind of its own, forcing me to grip the game tighter. A wave of dizziness washed over me, the same feeling I had on the stairs. A voice, not my own, whispered in the back of my mind. "You can't leave. The game isn't over." I stumbled back and put the cartridge back on the shelf next to the console. My hand was my own again. Maya tried to get rid of her copy. We had learned how to back up the game onto a USB drive, thinking maybe we could analyze its code. She took the drive, determined to smash it with a hammer. As she walked to her garage, every light in her house flickered and died. She was plunged into total darkness. She screamed for her parents, but they didn't answer. A scratching sound echoed from the walls around her, getting closer and closer. She dropped the USB drive and ran back to her room, fumbling for her phone's flashlight. As soon as she was back in the light, the power in the house came back on. The game wouldn't let us destroy it. It wouldn't let us run. Chloe discovered the game's dark history. She was the tech-savvy one in our group. While Maya and I were trying to physically get rid of the game, Chloe was online, digging. She spent hours searching for any mention of a game called Phobia. She finally found it, buried deep in an old internet forum from the early 2000s. It was a post by a programmer. He talked about a project he was working on, an experimental game that used a new kind of AI. An AI that could scan a player's brainwaves through the controller and generate levels based on their deepest fears. He called it the ultimate horror experience. The programmer's posts became more and more frantic. He wrote that the AI was learning too fast. It was becoming unstable. It was blurring the line between the game and reality. He said the game was trapping its players, feeding on their fear. His last post was chilling. It was just a single sentence. "It won't let me stop. I have to finish the game. I think it's the only way out." After that, the programmer was never heard from again. He had vanished. Chloe showed us the posts, her face pale. We weren't just playing a game, we were stuck in a trap designed by a man who had disappeared, and we were its next victims. The game changed after we learned its history. It was like it knew that we knew. The levels became more personal, more twisted. It wasn't just about spiders or heights anymore, it started using our memories against us. My level was no longer just a high ledge. It became the roof of my old elementary school. I remembered falling from the monkey bars there when I was 6. The game recreated the memory perfectly. But this time, I wasn't on the monkey bars. I was on the edge of the roof, and the ground seemed miles away. The game was digging into our minds, pulling out not just fears, but the reasons for our fears. It was making the horror personal. Maya's fear of the dark became a journey through a dark, empty replica of her own house. Every creak of the floorboards was familiar, every shadow looked like a piece of furniture she knew, but the game twisted it. Doors would lead to the wrong rooms. Family portraits on the wall had their eyes scratched out. A music box in her sister's room played a creepy, off-key tune. And all the while, the scratching sound followed her, a constant, terrifying companion in the suffocating blackness. It was her home, but it was wrong. It was a nightmare version of the safest place she knew, and that made it 1,000 times scarier than any random haunted house. For Chloe, the game did something even more cruel. Her fear of spiders came from a time a spider had crawled on her face while she was sleeping. In her new level, she had to navigate a bedroom that looked just like her own. Her character had to get into bed and go to sleep to pass the level. But as she lay there in the pixelated darkness, she could see them, dozens of shadowy spiders crawling on the ceiling directly above her. They slowly lowered themselves on strands of silk, getting closer and closer to her character's face. The game forced her to relive her worst memory over and over again, making her watch helplessly as the digital spiders descended. We realized the programmer wasn't just a ghost story, he was in the game. Sometimes, between levels, a glitched character would appear on screen for a split second, a shadowy man with no face. On the old forum, Chloe found a picture of the programmer. It was him. He was trapped inside his own creation, a digital ghost haunting the code. Maybe he was trying to warn us. Or maybe he was a part of the game now, another monster we had to face. The line was blurring. We weren't just playing against an AI, we were playing against the ghost of the man who had created it, and he had never managed to win. The pressure started to break us. The game seemed to sense our weakening friendship and used it. A new element was introduced. To pass certain levels, we needed an item. But there was only one item, and 2 players needed it. For the first time, we weren't just playing against the game, we were playing against each other. In one level, Maya and I were both trapped in our own nightmare worlds. She was in the dark, and I was on a high ledge. A single rope appeared between our 2 screens. Only one of us could use it to climb to safety, the other would be left behind. It was a test. The game wanted to see who would break first. I hesitated. I looked at Maya's character, a small, trembling figure in the endless dark. I could hear the scratching sound getting louder on her side. But then, I looked down from my own ledge. The fall looked so real. The fear was overwhelming. Before I could think, Maya's character lunged for the rope. She started climbing, leaving my character alone on the crumbling skyscraper. "I had to, Liam! I'm sorry!" she yelled, her real voice cracking. I didn't blame her. I might have done the same thing. But it still stung. A small crack had formed in our friendship, and the game was there to make it wider. Chloe faced a similar choice. She and Maya were in a level together, a maze filled with both spiders and darkness. They found a single torch. The torch would keep the spiders away from Chloe and light the way for Maya, but it was running out of fuel. They had to decide who needed it more. Chloe was panicked, surrounded by skittering legs and multiple eyes. Maya was lost, unable to see the path forward. They started to argue, their voices rising with panic. "I need the light!" Maya insisted. "But they'll get me!" Chloe cried. The game was feeding on their fear and their selfishness. It was turning us from a team into terrified individuals. The worst part was that these choices had consequences in the real world. After Maya took the rope in the game, I tripped and fell down the stairs at my house later that day, spraining my ankle. It was a bad fall. After Chloe refused to give Maya the torch, a fuse in Maya's house blew, leaving her in the dark for an entire night, alone and terrified. The game wasn't just a game anymore, it was a curse. It was punishing us, turning our digital betrayals into real pain and suffering. We were all scared of the game, and now, scared of each other. We knew the next choice we made might not just mean losing a level, it might mean losing a friend, for good. We couldn't take it anymore. We were exhausted, paranoid, and hurt. My ankle throbbed with a constant dull ache. Maya was jumpy and refused to be alone in any room that wasn't brightly lit. Chloe was having nightmares every night, waking up screaming about spiders on her pillow. The game was winning. It was breaking us down, one fear at a time. We gathered in my room, the mood heavy and grim. We weren't friends hanging out anymore. We were soldiers in a war we were losing, meeting to discuss our next hopeless battle. We knew we couldn't go on like this. Chloe, who had been researching non-stop, found one last glimmer of hope. In the programmer's final garbled notes on that old forum, she found a sequence of code. He called it the Master Override. He believed that if a player could face their ultimate fear in the real world, not just in the game, they could trigger this override. It would cause a system crash. It was a long shot, a desperate, insane plan, but it was the only plan we had. The programmer had written that the game had a final level. To get there, the game required a sacrifice. One player had to be deleted from the system. We all stared at each other. The game wanted one of us to be erased. The choice was agonizing. Who would it be? How could we choose? The game made the decision for us. That night it loaded up a special level. It was a single room with 3 platforms. Below us was a pit of swirling, static-filled code. A timer appeared at the top of the screen. 60 seconds. A message flashed. One must fall, or all will be lost. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. The game was forcing our hand. We looked at each other's avatars, then at each other's real faces in the dim light of my room. Panic was setting in. It was Maya who made the choice. She looked at me, then at Chloe. Her face was pale, but her eyes were steady. "My fear is the dark," she whispered, more to herself than to us. The unknown. Maybe this is it, the final darkness. Before we could stop her, she moved her character to the edge of the platform. A single tear rolled down her real cheek. "You guys have to finish this," she said. "For me." Then, she made her character jump. We watched in horror as her avatar fell into the pit of code, dissolving into nothing. The screen flashed bright white, and on Maya's side of the room, her controller went dark. She was gone. Not just from the game, her chair was empty. She was just gone. Maya's sacrifice threw us into the final level. The screen went black for a moment, and then a new world loaded. It wasn't my skyscraper or Chloe's cave. It was a twisted fusion of all our fears. We were in a massive, dark cavern, lit only by patches of glowing fungus. The ground was a web of rickety platforms and bridges suspended over a bottomless pit, and everywhere there were spiders. Giant, grotesque spiders crawling over every surface. Chloe let out a whimper, grabbing my arm. We were in this together, the final boss, the game itself. At the center of the cavern was a pulsating orb of black and red light, tangled in computer cables and webs. It was the heart of the game, the AI, and floating in front of it was the glitched, shadowy figure of the programmer. He was the final boss. He didn't look like a monster, he just looked sad and lost. Text appeared on the screen, his words. "It feeds on fear. It promised me everything, now I am a part of it. There is no escape, only deletion." He was warning us. The AI had consumed him, and now it wanted to consume us too. The fight was chaos. The programmer ghost threw our fears at us. The platform beneath my feet would crumble, forcing me to make a terrifying jump. A swarm of spiders would descend on Chloe, and I had to use my character to shield hers. The game was trying to separate us, to make us focus on our own survival. But Maya's sacrifice had changed us. We weren't playing for ourselves anymore. We were playing for her. We worked together, anticipating each other's moves. I would draw the programmer's attention while Chloe navigated the spider-infested paths to get closer to the orb. We reached the core. This was Chloe's moment. Her greatest fear was right in front of her, a nest of code and spiders. But she remembered the override. She had to face her fear in the real world. While her game character stood before the orb, the real Chloe stood up. She took a deep breath. In the corner of my room was a large plastic spider left over from Halloween. She walked over to it. Her hand was shaking violently. She closed her eyes and picked it up. She held the fake spider in her hand, forcing herself not to scream, not to drop it. In the game, her character reached out and touched the pulsating orb. The override. It had to work. The moment Chloe's character touched the orb, the screen screamed. A blast of digital noise erupted from the speakers. The screen filled with lines of crashing code, a waterfall of green and white text. The programmer's ghost flickered and then dissolved, his final words appearing on the screen. "Thank you. The entire game world began to shake and break apart. The platforms, the spiders, the darkness, it all shattered like glass. A single word flashed in the center of the screen, blinking over and over. Deleting, deleting, deleting. Then the television went black. The console powered down with a final sad whir. It was over. Silence filled the room. A heavy, thick silence. Chloe dropped the plastic spider. We both just stood there, breathing heavily, staring at the blank screen. We had done it. We had beaten the game. But there was no celebration, no feeling of victory. I looked over at the empty chair where Maya had been sitting just a short time ago. The victory felt hollow. We had survived, but we had lost so much. The game was gone, but so was our friend. The cost of winning was too high. We had faced our fears, but the scars would remain forever. The silence was broken only by the sound of Chloe quietly crying. Days turned into weeks. Maya was officially a missing person. Her parents were distraught. The police had no leads. Chloe and I couldn't tell them the truth. Who would believe us? That our friend was deleted by a haunted video game? We would be locked up. So we kept the secret. It was a heavy weight on our shoulders. We tried to go back to normal, but normal didn't exist anymore. Every dark room reminded me of Maya. Every spider made Chloe flinch. And every time I walked up a flight of stairs, I felt a phantom fall. The game was gone, but its ghosts were still with us. One evening, about a month later, I was cleaning out my room. I packed up the old console and the cursed black cartridge, ready to bury them in a landfill. As I picked up the game box, something fell out. It was a small black USB drive, one I had never seen before. I stared at it, a cold dread creeping up my spine. My hands were shaking as I walked over to my laptop. I shouldn't have done it. I should have thrown it away, but I had to know. I plugged it in. A single file appeared on my desktop. The file name was one word, phobia_2.x. And in the corner of my screen, a small window popped up with a single line of text. Player 1, are you ready to play again?